Good evening, all. I'll just wait maybe 1-2 minutes more for others to join. Good evening, all. If you can hear me, just say yes so we can start. Great, thanks. Thank you. Yeah. So today we'll continue with introduction to software testing. So by 2005, I'll just recap from what we have done right from last week, and then we'll start and we'll finish up the introduction to software training today, and I'll now move to a defect management tool that we use in recording bugs, write our test cases in. So I'll use a tool to demo for you, and that's the Azure DevOps. So that will be the last class. And you can actually ask any question. And not to forget again, once any question comes to you, you have your question in mind, just drop it in the chat. I have people are on ground, my colleagues are they're on ground, so they will be answering your question. But once I finish today, any question, please just put it forward. I'll be answering your questions, and I'll also ask you questions while I go along. So it's 2005, so it's introduction to software testing, which we were talking about last week. And so last week I gave you background in terms of different examples, and also in the textbook, if you have a soft copy or you have the online copy, you could just go there, you get different examples. But last week I gave example of new car, the expected futures when you want to buy a new car. What are the things you're expecting to see when you go to a showroom and you want to get a car? The first thing is that you want to see that, yes, if it's got a 5-wheel, if it's got a steering wheel, if it's got an engine, if it's got a door, if it's got a screen, all the essential components, everything you want to see it. And of course, every product or every software has a manual. So the documentation would have been done in the manual just for you to be able to read. I also give an example of a phone. If you want to get a phone, same thing, you go to the phone store, you look at, oh, these are the kind of phone I want to buy, the brand you want. You check, of course, if this phone is working as expected. Does it have the essential features I want to? Can I call? Can I receive? Can I do some chat? All the necessary things you need should be available on that phone. Likewise, I gave also an example of when you sleep and when you wake up in the morning, the way you stretch your body, you stretch your leg, all you're doing at that moment for all the scenarios is that you're testing what you have gone to. So if you get to the showroom, if you look at the car, it would have an engine. You start the ignition, you're testing the car. We all want to listen to the engine. You want to see what it can do. Can it park itself? Can different features that they have. Same thing with a phone. You want to see, of course, you're testing it when you're looking. Oh, of course, I can call. I can see the call button. I can see this feature. And also when you wake up. So those are the backgrounds I gave as example. I looked at several topics that we were talking about. The objective was what was type of testing and how is testing done, why is testing necessary, the general principles of testing, fundamentals of testing. We have some self-assessment questions, which are also in the textbook, just to test your knowledge on each chapter, or will I say preferably each topic. So same thing. Last week I also said testing. What is the meaning of testing? I said this is an activity that is performed to demonstrate that something is working as expected. So it's testing for me. I believe for every one of us here today, you can see testing is actually for everyone. And I said testing as a discipline. I mean, the kind of work that you do as a tester, test analyst, test engineer, software tester, mobile testing, performance testing, web tester, security tester, pen testing, that's penetration testing, UAT tester. These are the discipline where you can work. So you could be called a test engineer role. In another role, it might be defined as a test analyst, and in another one, it could be your software tester. So it could be agile tester too. So it depends on the name, what they actually need at the organization that is actually recruiting for the particular role. And I explained about good software tester, verbal and written communication. Verbal, to be able to express yourself just in a way every other person is going to understand. Not to forget that we are all from different backgrounds, different culture, and so you just an explanation. This is what I'm saying, and this is what is expected. This is what I'm actually saying. So just an explanation like that is fine. And in writing, just the necessary steps for you. Anything you want to do in life, you must have a passion for it. And same thing as testing, you must have a passion for it. If you want to learn how to drive a car, you must have a passion at least before you can do anything you want to do. Technical skills, that's why we are here also doing the automation testing, analytical skills, attitude, and the productivity too. Testing as a discipline, inquisitive, work smartly, think out of the box, patient, attention to details. Who can test? Anybody can test. What can be tested? What can be tested? If you could remember last week, what can be tested? Someone should just kick up the chat. Let's see what can be tested. What can be tested? Yes, don't worry, we'll share the textbook with you. Just send your email to the admin. A soft copy will be sent to you. What can be tested from the last week class? Can you remember?
Websites.
Just type it on the chat, please.
Sorry. Really?
Software, yes. Hardware, software, correct. Yes. These are the things. No. What can be tested? Hardware, software. So those hardware are the laptops, your website, and that's the software. Then the software talking about internet browser. Good. I'm happy we're all following. So what can be tested? Hardware, software, physical devices. So physical devices are the laptop, you're looking at your website, all these. Then software, what cannot be tested? That's the internet browser. So software I am testing, we said, as I said earlier, is an activity that is executed to demonstrate that a software is working as expected. It's not complex, it's not difficult to implement and execute, which we are going to do that today. How can it be tested? Manually, we can, and automatically. Manually, use without using tool, um, automatically with using tools. So, why do we test? To avoid that system failure, consequences, loss of life, loss of time, loss of business reputation, injury, and death. These are kind of consequences if you don't um, test adequately. So, the risk factor. So we have error, defect, and failure. So if you could remember last week, I said error is a mistake. It leads to defect, which can cause an observed failure. So error is human mistake. Error is human mistake. So if you know defect, just put it on the chart. Defect, as I said, error is human mistake, defect. So defect, these are examples of error at each level. Error could be done by the business analyst. He or she may interpret or misunderstand the requirements. The customer may provide insufficient or incorrect information. The architect may cause a flaw in software design. People on the team can also make mistakes due to unclear or insufficient requirements. Defect is an inconsistency between expected and actual results. I told you those two words, expected, actual results. You would have been hearing me saying it all through. Anything we are going to do today, this is what we are going to talk about, expected and actual results. So, and I said defect is in a software project reflects the inability of the software to comply with the specified requirements subsequently. So an error that the tester finds is known as a defect. And defects are also called faults or bugs. So when you get, and as I've said last week, people have different interpretation to what um, what a particular term means in terms of testing. Some we call it, you can say error, you could call it a defect, some call it a fault, they call it a failure. But you from our perspective now, we know the meaning of an error, we know what a defect is, you also know what a failure is. Because at this stage, you could be asked in an interview just for you to understand. So you need to know the difference between them. They all, if there is an error, that error is the one that will definitely lead to a defect. So I found a mistake. So I found a defect. I found a bug. So most of the time, some call it defect, some call it a bug, some call it a fault, come call it a failure. So the same thing. I said failure is a consequence of a defect. So keeping software under control. Exhaustive testing of complex system is not possible. So you can't say you have actually tested everything on this system and you are very sure it's not going to fail. It's not possible. You can't say, even if you've tested at the brake of a car, if anyone has tested that the brake of the car is kind of so sharp, it doesn't mean it won't cause accident. So that's why you have to prioritize in terms of testing. So you need to know what are the risks. That's where the testing and risk, testing and quality, and when it is enough to say enough is enough. Is is it possible? Is it possible to run every test, simple or complex test? So when is testing enough? That's what I've just said now, testing and risk, two words. I'm testing, I'm also validating the risk. I'm testing, so also checking and validating the quality. Now, I've done this. When will I say is enough? Has it met all the risk? Have they been tested properly? Have the quality, is it okay? Yeah, I have them. Then testing is not. No, the risk, there are still some critical bugs, major bugs still open. Unfortunately, quality is not as sound as what we want, so testing is not enough. Then we still need to hold on and get those fixed. General principles, general testing principles. I said we have 7. Testing shows the presence of bug. So if you know, that's the essence of testing. It shows the presence of bug. Exhaustive testing is impossible. Exhaustive testing is impossible. Early testing. What early testing? The earlier we start testing, the better for us to catch a lot of bugs. And of course, it won't lead to the earlier you test is sorry, please mute, please. The earlier you test is easier for both you, the organization, and everyone on the team. Because before you get to the end of it, we could have fixed that defect before it actually, after we have finished, everything is cost. So it's more expensive to leave the defect to the last phase. That's why it's better we start testing early. What's a defect cluttering? Pesticide paradox. It doesn't mean when you test often and often that there is no bug. I gave example of a page. If you see the if I have a content, maybe like a page, a textbook page, and I'm told to um, actually test this, I can find 10 to 20 errors on that page. But when you give it to the next, if you 10 to 20 errors, if I go back again, I can find others. Later on, I'll start skipping lines and saying, oh, this first line, there's nothing there. This second one. So by that time, I'll feel that, yes, I know everything there. So it doesn't mean that because I'm testing it, I'm not finding bug. But when you take the same content and give it to tester B, he or she is going to find even more errors than what is expected. Than what is expected. So testing is context dependent. We have to use some things in terms of data, test data to get that. Absence of error fallacy. So that's what I've said. It doesn't mean because you can say, oh, there's no bug in this. It doesn't mean that system doesn't have a fault. It doesn't mean the system is good. So that's the reason. So general testing principles, remember 7. There are 7. If you can remember 3, like just have it. Fundamental test process. Last week I was talking about the house foundation, just the same way you are doing building a house, that you have different how to start. So the same way we are doing here in terms of this. So talking about test planning and control, test analysis and design, test implementation and execution, test exit criteria and reporting, test closure activities. All these are still going to, I'm still going to talk about them again today in the other ones. There is psychology of testing. Then we started the software development lifecycle. That's the SDLC. Different models of software development lifecycle. Please, any question you have, just drop it on the chat. I have my colleagues looking at each of the questions and you'll be given an answer immediately. Once I finish, I'll go through the questions again, and anything you have, you can ask me by then. I'll be checking the chat too. Please, any questions so that you don't forget your questions. It's better to ask now. So I've got different models of software development lifecycle. That's the SDLC, software development lifecycle. Pros and cons, concept of understanding. All this was explained last week. So we had waterfall, iterative incremental development model, which is called the Agile, spiral, V model, Big Bang model, and the RAD model. These are different ones, but currently we actually work on three. Waterfall, laid as a linear model. V model is the sequential development model. And we've got the iterative incremental development model, which is Agile. Nowadays, everyone goes for these Agile, but you could still be working with people that want this waterfall. Like currently, I have to do two test plan, because the way test plans are done, which I'm going to explain today, is kind of different. You do the one for Agile is just majorly like a one page, what was achieved in the sprint, and waterfall, it has to be a detailed document. So now you're working with people that maybe they are still like in a native way, they still want the detailed test plan, want everything inside. You have to work and get this. There are different test plan templates. So now let's talk about the waterfall model. The reason for this waterfall is because you can see the diagram. That's the waterfall model. It's just like a waterfall. And what we said in waterfall, that you will have to finish one level before you go to the other one. So you gather requirement, finish everything. Nobody's aware of that. No, so it has to be done by the business analyst. So once that is done, then they move it to design, which is from the architectural and also development, testing, deployment, and maintenance. So each level, you have to finish this before your design can start. When design finished, then deployment is done, development is done. So the development that is done, after that development, you finished everything, then you give it to a tester. Then we now start testing. And all this, from there, we develop a deployment, then maintenance. If anything goes wrong at any point in time, you won't know until maybe when we start testing and it's being deployed. So everything that's been done from the beginning now, we'll have to come back and start again. It actually, we said the advantage that phases are completed and their process are completed one at a time. Works well for small project where requirements are well understood. The disadvantage is that, as a con, is that complete a stage before moving to the next. If something is wrong in the later stage, there is no chance of going back. This is an expensive model. So this is V model. If you look at the shape, is a V shape. So we've got the every verification that we have a validation. So it means if I'm checking, if I'm writing, if the business analyst is writing a user story, there is a testing to validate that user story. So user requirement, acceptance testing. In terms of you have given us a login requirement. Now, what are the acceptance testing? Is it going to have username, first name, last name, all the details that is going to have login, registration, sign in, register, anything that's got to do with it. So that's the acceptance testing. So you need to at every level there's a testing attached to it. So talk about the software application, same thing, and talk about the high level design too. Same issue. So we're talking about verification and validation. What is verification? Verification is, are you building the right product? That's verification. Now, validation. Are you building the right product? Yes, I'm building the right product. Does it meet the user's need? That is when you will know you are actually building the right product. Because if you are given a requirement to build something and you feel, oh, that thing is fine, and it doesn't work fine for the user, then you've not actually done what the customer wants. So it's not working as expected. So that's it. And there are advantages, and so the major disadvantage is that is a major drawback. So at every level you have to wait, it's slow and like so we go through the iterative and incremental phase. So at this phase we talk about iteration. So for instance, you start with one iteration. So you get requirements. The requirement is a login. So the first one is you've got a requirement. Say in login is a requirement. You have all the details. This is what we want to do in the sprint. Requirement is there. It goes for design. It's been done. After the architectural design is done, it moves to coding. Coding done by the developers. And once that is done, we move to testing. So as it's done, testing, test, that login. Don't forget, it's just login that this phase is taking. After the login, then I know oh, it's fine. Everything goes as expected. Is what the user wants. So I've done my verification and validation testing in terms of it meeting the user's need. And once that is done, we put the product, and the user also verifies that yes, it's working. Now that is the end of one iteration. We have completed one phase. Now we'll start another phase to say this time around we have done login. We want to do maybe register link or search link. We go through this design, coding, testing, phase. That's another product. So it is an iteration. So it goes often, you have to finish up one feature, you go back again, you start. So this is it. So requirement, analysis, design, coding, software product. You now move to the next one again. Requirement analysis, design, coding. You do the testing again, and the software has been, everyone has tested. We are happy, happy, happy. Move again until you get to the end iteration. So this is Agile, the iterative incremental development model. So from there, we start from definition of ready. Are we ready to kick off? What do we understand? What is expected of us? Yes, we do. Backlog backlog are where we store all the requirements, the user stories are stored in the backlog. From there, we do a sprint planning to bring them into the sprint. Sprints are done fortnightly. If you could remember, I said but it depends on the organization. Some do weekly, some do 3 weekly, even a month. But majorly from the agile principle is meant to be fortnightly. The first day of the week, which is Monday, you do your sprint planning. You've got 8 days. That's the Monday to Thursday. Then Friday should be majorly deployment, demo in terms of review, putting the stakeholders. All these are the things done in the sprint, within a sprint. Development done by developers it moves to testing. After testing, integration. Integration is keeping it somewhere. Of course, we are going to integrate it into the code. Then we deliver it to the client, you to test. Then we say yes, we are ready. So take it from here. Definition of ready. Login is here. Login is now in the backlog. From the backlog, we move login to the sprint. Now the developer develops login, gives it to the tester. Tester, I'm happy. Yeah. We are happy. Integration. Then we move the code, we send it to the client, you to test from your part. And are you happy? Yes. We keep that code. And now we say login is finished. So we have a working code for login. So same thing as this. Levels or test levels, unit testing, that's done by devs, integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing. Types of testing, we have the functional testing, non-functional testing, testing after code has been changed, that's regression testing. So I talked about regression testing last week, and also retesting. So retesting most of the time is asked in interviews. What is the difference between retesting and regression? So retesting is is like you're retesting. Like for instance, if you find a bug when you were testing the login, and the bug is in the username, and the bug you have actually stated to the developers, oh, I found a bug here, I've raised the bug, and it's been fixed. The first thing you want to do is that you iterate what has been done, the bug that you have found before. You do the same step that you wrote in the bug just to ensure that, yes, check it, just retest that same thing you said was wrong. After that, when you are doing that severally, because it has been fixed, so you are retesting that same thing that the developer has fixed. Now, not to forget, he has fixed that. There could be something while he was fixing in the code that could affect anything there. So hence retesting of you are retesting. After retesting that, when you now do the testing of everything, ensuring that when I log in, I'm going to that page, checking everything that you have tested in a whole before, then that's regression testing. Testing, it verifies and validates software. Debugging, fixing bug. That's it, debugging, removing errors. So static testing, dynamic testing. Static is done when code is not executed. For instance, you are reading a requirement document. Then dynamic testing is done in validation stage. That's code is being executed and tested without necessary examination. Review. I said there are types of review: informal walkthrough, technical review, inspection. So last week, test condition, test cases, which I explained test condition as majorly forming if you have a particular item, like I gave an example of you going to see the GP, a patient gets to the reception in the UK, you have to log in to say my appointment is today. I want to say, oh, for what? You have a headache. So we start our conditions by saying, oh, patient A has a headache. So it's registered. By the time the doctor calls you, before the doctor calls you, he or she has seen what was registered in your name. Oh, headache. So he start building his test case. What happens if these are the questions I'm going to ask her. That is what he's going to ask you. Those are the test cases to say, these are the step. What am I going to ask Yemi? When she shakes her head, if you touch it, if you bend, what happens? Is expected is that there should be nothing wrong with you. When you shake your head, when it touches, that's what he's expecting, and he's going to write it there. But now when you get to him, he's now saying, oh, you have come. This is what he will be reading out what he has for you. to say when you shake your head, you have this. When you do this, yeah. So when you say no, and at the point, he is looking at you now because you are right in front of him. You are the actual results now. So anything you say is anything you tell the doctor is your actual result. So those are test condition. Test cases are the preconditions. The expected results are the things that you are using. So now your test procedure specification, which we can say majorly like a test script, is that you have executed what has been done. So I gave an example, design test cases. Now, please, these test cases that I put here, this is what I'm going to use throughout today, and I'll expect you. There'll be maybe some work for you to do at the end of the class. So which you will do and actually submit it when you come over to us for the internship. Yeah. So designing test cases. So this is the test cases I was talking about last week. So I just gave an example of that. And this is a test script after everything has been completed and I put a pass there. And I talked about black box testing and white box testing. They are specification based. So we have the equivalent partitioning, boundary value analysis, decision table. And the white box is majorly a technique that is used to explore system or component structure at several levels. So you're talking about the components, the programs, all these the modules testing rigorously. So those are the structure, the white box testing. So categories of test case design: experience based, using your experience as a tester. That's what experience based is. Error guessing. So maybe you have actually um, maybe you have like for instance now if you go to maybe you were employed by Facebook. You've been using Facebook, maybe it's just some things. So you could be guessing, oh, this is this. So of course those are exploring exploratory testing is just for you ensuring that, oh, I've not used this system before. I just need to play with it. I need to explore it, get an understanding of the system. So that's the first thing when you get to an organization. If it's not a greenfield in terms of nothing has been developed, so you all have to start from the scratch. If it's something that they have initially, the first thing is for you to do an exploratory testing, ensure you understand what this system is doing. So we start today's class by saying test management. Any question you have from the other class, please just put it in the chat. So today if you notice that everything I've been saying is the same thing I'm going to continue to say till I finish this class in half an hour before I move to the tool. So it's just the same thing because I've been talking about them previously. So today the learning objective for this is going to be test management, risk and testing, if you remember, exit and entry criteria, test plan, and test strategy. So test management, risk and testing. So as I said, before you can even talk about testing, you must think about the risk. So, for instance, you want to take a car as a case study. The first thing is you are looking at the risk. What is the risk? If this is not tested properly, what will happen? Loss of life. So you have to be weighing those things when you are actually testing. So it's not once you're talking about testing, you'll also be talking about the risk. So it's not possible to talk about test management without first looking at the risk and how it affects the fundamental test process defined earlier. Those that is fundamental test process that we actually defined earlier, talking about the test implementation and execution, talking about test planning and design, talking about the planning and control. These are fundamental test processes. So if there were no risk to an adverse future event in software or hardware development, then there will be no need for testing, if you all agree with me. In other words, if defects did not exist, then neither would testing. So if there is no defect, testing will not actually, we won't have any work to do. But I always ask, is there anything you do without testing? Take it, the literal things, even with water. If you boil hot water and you actually want to mix it to be warm, if you're putting water in the cup, cold water and warm water, you will actually still be testing, is this one cold, is it warm, when you want to do a wash. That's the way you have to. So testing is, if you look at the risk, if you on the hot water tap and you don't mix it and maybe it's kind of boiling and you pour it on your body, that's the end. So that's the same. So there's everything you're doing, you must test it. Even when we on our TVs, we check, or the volume is high, reduce it. So all these are yardsticks when you're testing. So there's nothing you're doing that you won't test. So a factor, what is risk? A factor that could result in future negative consequences, usually expressed as impact and likelihood. So anything that will cause negative consequences is a risk. So let's talk about entry criteria. Entry. I'm entering. Entry. I want to start something. I want to go inside something. I want to begin a project. I want to learn this. So that's the starting point for you. Your starting point now is that you want to learn the fundamentals of testing. What are the first stages? That's why you're doing this today. So that's the starting point for you. Now, in testing, entry criteria are used to determine when a given test activity can start. This will include the beginning of a level of testing, when test design or when the test execution is ready to start. So if you could remember, as I was saying, that there were test cases and test script. So there are things that has to be on ground when you are starting your entry criteria. One, all the test cases and test scripts are ready. So if you look at my test script at this point, this is my design. I've already done this down. I've not started executing. This is the first thing I've done. I've not executed it. I've not done anything. So I need to prepare this down. This is my preparation. This is my entry point. So then the environment is ready and stable. You have to be speaking with the developers. Tell them the kind of environment you want to do. I am easy informed, like if where how is the process going to be like. You need to visualize things on your head to say, oh, I'm going to test this data. Is this data going to move from point A to point B? And where is my end result? So those process, you need a place where you can test it. That's why you need a test environment. Test environment is majorly used by you, is controlled by you, because that is where you can actually do anything before it goes live. So you have the test environment, and there are stages of environment. We've got the developer environment, is owned by the developers. When they finish everything they have done, they will give you the bits that is needed and send it deployed to test environment. Test environment now upgrade. We've got test environment where it depends on the configuration. When I mean in terms of access, terms of what you have. So it's going to be determined by the test environment. So test environment A could say, oh, you can run all your manual tests in this environment. This is the yardstick you must go through then. Test environment B could be maybe an integration environment where you're actually going to do your automation. So at this phase, we are in test environment A because we are doing our manual testing. By the time you start executing your automation testing, is a different configuration. It has to mirror the developer's face for you to. So that's how it's configured. Then you have the UAT, the user acceptance testing area. That is going to be done either by the business, and also the client. After every one of us, we are happy. UAT or a pre-prod environment, it depends on how many environments is supported in the organization you're working for. So if you have your pre-prod or UAT environment, it will mirror. When I mean mirror, if you look at the mirror and you're seeing yourself, you look the same. So it's the same thing you are seeing, but it's just in the mirror. So the same way, it's just going to be production, but this is UAT, but is mirroring what is in production. So every access that is in production is in UAT. So if anything goes wrong in UAT, if you switch it to production, you are going to have the same issue there. So that's why. Then we have the code build and deployment to test environment successful. So there would have been like a smoke test just to ensure that when we deploy, test environment is happy. This would have been done by you liaising with the devs, or if you can do deployment, it depends. Then smoke tests passed. So when I mean smoke test, if you tell me test environment is fine, of course you need an endpoint. Endpoint is URL. Maybe to get to that. When you put the URL, most of the time, if you put it on the test environment, it could crash. It could not go. So you need to just quickly do a smoke test. Of course, when I put it there, yes, I can see it. The page is coming and that. Relevant requirement artifacts are available. Those are part of the development. So that's entry criteria. That is how to start. So you prepare all this down. Then you know that yes, my entry criteria level has been accomplished. Now I go to exit. Exit. We all know the exit door. That's where you want to go out. So now use exit. This is where I want to stop. I'm going out of what I've done. I want to stop here. So that's when I want to start executing. All the things I've done in my entry criteria, it needs to be executed somewhere. So that is when you can say it is completed. I've finished it. So exit criteria are used to determine when a given test activity has been completed or when it should stop. Exit criteria can be defined for all test activities such as planning, specification and execution as a whole, or at any specified test level or test specification, as well as execution. So some typical exit criteria might be: one, you run all tests planned has been run. So this is my test case. I've designed it. Now I've gone there. I've put my actual results and I've put my status. Now I've executed this test plan, this test script. So that's what is expected at this level. So you must have finished running that. Then a certain level of requirement coverage has been achieved. That must have been done as part of your design for the test cases. That's where we have a traceability matrix. You are tracing the requirement, you are looking at your test cases. Login, when you pick login as a requirement, how many stories have you completed with login requirement? These are the things that we do at the entry criteria level. Ensure that you look at the risk. Most of the time, I don't keep my document. I always share it, and I use tools. So it depends on the tools you're using in your organization. So once it's there, the only thing is to tell them, this is what I've designed. Everyone is free. People can tell you they are not going there, but I will tell you that most of the time it's always checked. So then no high priority or severe defect are left outstanding. That's what I've said initially. All high level risk areas have been fully tested. That's you're looking at the risk, and only minor residual risk left outstanding. When we mean minor, maybe in terms of text, in terms of maybe cosmetic bugs, somewhere is not standing properly. Oh, I don't like the picture here, but the picture is still going to be somewhere. So those can still be done later. Oh, the logo is too big here. We can still refine all those ones later. Those are the minor bugs they're talking about. The schedule has been achieved in terms of the release date has been reached and the product has to go live. So that is the exit criteria. So when you're talking about expected actual result. Always know the difference. Validation, verification, retesting, regression, exit criteria, and entry criteria. Always have those things at the back of your mind. They are words that we true when it comes to testing. So test management, test estimation. So we are going to talk in this part. We are going to talk about two types of test estimation approach. One is metric-based approach. Metric-based metric. We are talking about data. So now you have said it. The number of test conditions. You want to look at the number of test conditions, the number of test cases written, the number of test cases executed, time taken to develop the test cases. These are like looking at the effort, the time, because most of the time, if you're working in agile environment, you need your your time are actually your time, your resources are actually monitored in a way in terms to say how many hours are you going to use, how many points are you going to use on this particular story, what are the test cases that you have actually developed. So all this, not to forget, as you're writing the test cases, you're actually thinking of the scenarios. So all this also take time. So you need to know what you can do. Some will tell you, oh, in a day, I can write 5 to 10 test cases. It depends on how fast you are. Some, it could be two. Maybe the two could be so cumbersome that you are actually finding a way to say, okay, if I link here, because as you're writing the test cases, it has to make sense. It has to marry up with what is going to be with the system, with actually what you are saying. So the steps have to be in order. So that might take time for some people. That can take time, but we expected 5, 10 cases. It should be in a day. Some can do 20. It depends on your capacity and the way you actually understand the system. It's just like now you give me a system that I've been using. Most of us give me Facebook as or Google as one. Some of us use all this social media. So we have it at our beck and call. When they tell you write test cases on them, maybe someone like me that I'm not social media, you would have finished 100. Maybe I'm still on my 10, still trying to navigate around. So that's the same way it is. The more you understand the system, the quicker you become. And how do you understand? Is when you start exploring the system, getting to know them, you too will also get there. Rome is not, it starts a little. then you too get there. But the more, why I said the more you practice, the more you get an understanding of it. The same way you're going to do a web application, a mobile application, an API testing, if you already know where to hit, the same way you're going to put when it comes to any project you're working on. So the time taken to develop test cases, the time taken to run it, the number of defect found, the number of environment outrage, and how long the average will take. So now we go to the last bit of this page, which is what is test plan? A test plan is a detailed document that describes the test strategy, objectives, schedule, estimation, and deliverables and resources required for testing. Test plan is like is the big brother. So it needs to understand high level of everything that is done. That is done. So we are talking about is going to give you test strategy, the objective, the schedule, the estimations and deliverables, and we're talking about resources required for testing. So in terms of the objectives, why do you want to do, what are the test plan for? So what do you want to do? Ah. Then the schedule, how long is it going to take? What are your estimation in terms of the test cases I was just talking about now? So how many is it going to take? What are your plans, your deliverables? And also the resources. Who is going to do the manual testing? Who is going to do the automation? Who is going to do regression, bug fixes? But most of the time, all these are done by, nowadays, it's done by one person in the team. As long as you are you are testing in that team, because most of the time they don't put lot of testers together, maybe one or two, at most three in a particular project, except if it's a very, very big and complex project. So most of the time we take ownership of all this. But test plan are meant to be done by the test manager, but most of the time leads also can do. And even you as a test analyst, you can also do test plan. It's just there are templates for it. Test plan helps us to determine the effort needed to validate the quality of the application under test. Test plan serves as a blueprint to conduct software testing activity as a defined process, which is minutely monitored and controlled by the test manager. So even when you finish, if you've got a test manager in the organization, he or she still needs to review it. But if they have a template, it's kind of easier. You can follow the template and put your words. Design a test plan has multiple benefits. So those are the importances of test plan. One, it helps people understand the testing team, such as the developers, the business manager, customers understand the details of the test plan. So I always say to people that test plan are things that we are saying now, talking about the expected, we're talking about the exit entry criteria. All these are included in the test plan. So there are things that talking about types of testing, levels of testing, unit testing, component testing, integration, system testing. All these are embedded in your test plan. So it's things that So literally just 3 to 4 lines of the explanation of each of these will do in your document. So test plan guides our thinking. It is like a rule book which needs to be followed. So most of the time, when you do a plan, even if you're building a house, when you do a plan, they still carry the plan till they finish the house. When they finish the house, you still have a plan that is given to you to say, oh, this is the plan of the house. If there's any changes in it, it will, to be stated in the plan. Important aspects like test estimation, test scopes are documented in the test plan. So it can be reviewed by the management team and reused for other projects. So that's why I said you can use it. So what are the basic, so how to write a test plan? First, you analyze the product. You need to know, what do we want to build? What is this project all about? What is the overview? What do I understand about this project before you bring it out? Then design a test strategy. Define test objectives. Plan test environments. Which environments do you want to use? Resource planning. Who is going to do this? How are the processes? The development, the testing, the who is going to be in charge of the servers, the database,
In regards to
all this.
the auspicious time for the ceremony. He said that tomorrow is very auspicious.
Sorry, please, can you mute? Then define test strategy. The test strategy consists of both the entry and the exit criteria, which we've been talking about, schedule and estimation. We need to schedule what time is it going to take us as testers to finish up, what is needed, is there any risk involved, or maybe at a point I will need help, so those can be stated. Then they said determine the test deliverables. What is the test deliverables? What do we want to actually achieve? So all these are part of it. So the first one, analyze the product under test. I'm just using this as an example. You should, that's property read website, you should research client and the end user to know their needs and expectation from the application. So these are questions. This is a website. So the first thing you need to ask is that, who will use the website? You are trying to analyze. You want to know. You want to get information so that you will know how to build your test plan. Who will use the website? It's going to be used by the public. Talk about maybe if he's an estate agent, so homeowners, people that want to buy a home. All these are, so there's a market survey for that to know who are going to use the website. What is it used for? You need to know what this website is used for. You might have, let's take a car, for instance, a big one. Not to forget, it's not, there are people that are going to do the engine, that is going to test that engine, that will ensure that the engine of the car is working as expected. There's another team. Sorry. There's another team that will actually be looking at the brake, another team at the wheel. So these are different components, these are different things. So what is it used for? You need to have an understanding of what each of them are using to be, and how will it work? What are the software, hardware the product uses? So that's part of analysis. There are still many things that you can analyze, get information about. Develop test strategy. Test strategy is a critical step in making test plan. A test strategy document is a high-level document which is usually developed by the test manager. Just have it in mind that most of the time is meant to be done by the test manager. But you could be asked by your test manager, do it for the project you are working on, because we are all working. Do it and I'll review it. So it could be a two-way thing. Define the test objective. Test objective is the overall goal and achievement of the test execution. The objective of the testing is finding as many software defects as possible. That is what you want to do. Ensure that the software under test is bug-free before release. The first thing, to define the test objective, you should do these following steps. List all the software features, the functionality, the performance, the user graphical interface, if there's an API, if it's mobile, different features, anything that is going to be part of the features, just list them down. which you need to test. Some you might need physical devices. Some you can need, um, you might need access. You can do API. So it depends on it, the kind, what you actually, the project you're actually working on. So that's why it's better for you to list everything. When you list it, it's easier for you to know the coverage on what you're actually going to work and test on. Then the next thing is define the target or the goal of the test based on the above features. So for the functionalities, it should, in terms of all the functionalities, should be for the performance, what do you want to do? The load, the stress testing, the volume, and then many people are using the GUI. So you want to see how it is going to look like. In terms of mobile, can I see the content clearly in some of these um, mobile in terms of the versions or in terms of the model that we have? Is in the new one or the old one? All these are criteria that you look for. Then define test strategy, test test criteria. So the test criteria is a standard or rule that on which a test procedure or a test judgment is based on. There are two. We know it, which I've explained: entry and exit criteria. So resource planning is detailed summary of all the types of resources required to complete project tasks. Resource could be human, equipment, and materials needed to complete a project. So when you mean human, you as a tester, you're part of the resources. So you need to say, oh, um, this is what the testers are going to do. This is their duty. This is what you're going to design the test script. You are going to design the test plan, talk about the test report, the test coverage as a whole, just for us to have it. All these are part of the things. What equipment am I going to use? Um, both I need of course, my laptop. I've got mobile phones. I've got tools such as maybe automation tools. Um, I need access to load for performance testing, all the equipment and materials that are needed for the project. So plan test environment. What is a test environment? So I've been explaining test environment. Test environment is just a setup that you, as a tester, everything you have stated, it is going to be there. As I've been talking about websites, cars, those that are going to run the car are different fields already. You are going to do it on your own machine here. It's just going to be done. They have people to go on the field to test run that, to do all that, time short. So that is done. All your websites, before it goes live, is done on your seat there. Everything. That's why you have an endpoint, an environment where you can test it on. So before it's released to the real environment. So schedule and estimation. By creating a solid schedule in test planning, the test manager can use it as a tool for monitoring the project progress, control the cost overrun. So that's the essence of the schedule and the estimation. You have to control it. So that's now, maybe you might have said, I'm going to need help when it comes to this. Now they look at it. Oh, you have like 50 or 100 test cases to run, and you've got a deadline of 1 week or 2 days. You want to execute 50 test cases in 2 days. And as you're executing it, they're bored, you have to wait for them to bring up these things. So by the time you're doing that ping pong, forget 24 hours is gone. You've got just 8 hours to do that. Now, you if you can actually do 5 or 10 that day successfully, you still left with 40, and we have got another 8 hours to do. So when you say you can do 10, so we actually just need to pull people in. That's the way the test manager thinks and just know how to actually do it. So that's why I said to create a project schedule. He said employee and project deadline. So these are project deadlines. So we have to know project estimation based on the test manager. How long is it going to take? Then the project risk. So you also need to know the risk before you can do that. Then test deliverables is a list of all the documents, tools, and components that has to be deployed and maintained to support the testing efforts. So there are different levels of testing. You start before, during testing, and after testing. That's the way it is. So before testing is all the test cases, thinking out of box. That's why he says you have to be inquisitive, you have to think smartly, you have to think out of the box. All these are things to look forward to. So the last bit of this is now test strategy. Test strategy. We've been talking about test plan. Likewise, is incorporated with test strategy. They are similar document but different changes. Now, test strategy is more of is a breaking, like more of has to do with testing in terms of what types of testing are we going to. Please, can you mute? Um, Type of testing to be done, what level, and this. So, a test strategy is a plan for defining the approach of the software testing life cycle. It guides the QA team. Sorry, admin. Okay. Ah. It guides the QA team. I'm sure you all can still hear me. It guides the QA team to define test coverage. When we mean test coverage, what has been done, what has been completed, all these are part of test coverage reporting. Thank you. Test coverage and testing scope. It also aids tester to get a clear picture of the project at any instance. The possibility of missing any test activity is very low when there is a proper test strategy in place. So at this phase, you know that once a bug is done, there is a bug life cycle, how the bug is moved to the developer, it comes back to the tester, from the tester retesting. After I retest, I do a regression testing. After I do a regression testing, fine. I start testing all the features. All this is detailed in the test strategy. When you have a test strategy, it makes you not forget some of the things that you want to do. So, for instance, you want to go to you want to you want to cook a pot of stew. You don't want to forget anything that you want to put in the pot when you get to the market. You can do a list. This is the list. This is the way I'm going to. This is the list I'm going to do. When I go to the market, this is what want to get. These are now my necessary steps that I'm going to do to achieve a good soup, a sweet pot of soup. That's the same way we do our testing. Before I want to start, I want to put up a strategy, a guideline for me to be able to do my testing when it comes to me now as a tester. The test strategic document answer questions like what you want to get done, how you are going to accomplish it. It is the most important document for any QA team in software testing. Writing an effective strategy document is a skill that a tester develops with experience. Everything is with experience. Test strategy plan should be communicated with the entire team so that the team will be consistent on approach and responsibility. How to prepare a good test strategy document. So every organization has its own unique priority and set of rules for software designing. So you can't copy. You can reuse any one, but you see, it says don't copy blindly. Not that I've used it for web application. Now, when I want to do API, I'm going to use the same thing. So you have to You have to actually know that these are the kind of testing that goes on. So you don't just copy word for word. Always ensure that the document is compatible and adds value to the software development before following the template. So what's in scope? One, scope. It defines parameters like who will review the document. So we have document reviewers. So talk about the test manager if you are not the test manager, or if you are not the lead to write that document. So talk about the test manager, talk about like a development manager, talk about the developers. You're talking about maybe a project manager. So people, there are hierarchies to reviewing the document. So you could ask in the organization and know, but majorly you should have a test manager, the developers that you're going to work with. Um, if you have all the testers too, they can also review the document. Um, Project manager, development lead, all these people, because in terms of your dev environment, your servers, your database, all these, you have to get them involved. So who will approve the document? So there are approve list too. After the review, there are certain people to approve too. So you could software testing activities carried out with timelines. So test approach. It defines process of testing, the test, the testing levels. That's the test approach. Roles and responsibility of each team members. Test analyst. These are your role. Design the test scripts. Um, Test plan. If there's going to be a strategy, you do also. Automation. You tell them. So your own role at level. What's the developer going to do at that level? They are in charge of the code. They are going to do this, achieve that in one line. Project manager, they oversee the project, ensure it's executed. Test manager, in terms of we are all part of testing team, so that's fine. Types of testing. So now that's where it comes. You have to say every testing, all the testing you're going to do there. So retesting of bug fixes, regression testing, unit testing going to be done by the developers. If you are going to do a mobile testing, performance testing, functional testing, non-functional testing in terms of breaking them down. So you're talking about compatibility testing, all type of testing phase that you're going to do for that project will be there. Then testing approach and automation tools if applicable. Yes, so like me, I like um a picture of all the tools I'm going to do. I had them explain what I'm going to use it for. That's my test approach. Each of the testing type, I put it about it. The defects, the defect triage, the retesting, I put them also in my test approach just to ensure this is a test approach column. So it could take kind of time just for me to do and state this is the automation tools I'm using. These are the kind of things I'm doing. So, no defects. So the environment, I've been talking about that. So is the normal setup for test environment, testing tools. So in terms of automation testing tools, most organizations, if they've got some secure platforms, so you just have to request access and know what they do. So that's the way you get that access. So any tool you want to use, you have to ask. Some you can just download it, but most organization you have to request an access. Release control. So release, there are processes of release which will be done. So release management will plan with appropriate version history that will make sure test execution for all modification in the release. So that's it. Release risk analysis, list all risks that you can estimate. Give a clear plan to mitigate the risk. Also, a contingency plan. Conti- Contingency is just okay. I've finished. I know I can finish this thing in 10 days. Yeah, 10 days. 10 days is fine. But also give yourself that, give or take, maybe in that 10 days. We've wasted time on even getting the environment, and also this bug has been going back and forth. So there's wasted time, you are blocked there. So that's why we say contingency. You could put another 5 days to say, give or take. I could do it earlier, I could do it less. I mean, I could do it even more. But you would have had it, so you know it's 15 days that is recorded. That's the way it's done. So review and approve on approvals. All these activities, I've said it, all the reviews and approvals activity, the summary of it. So test plan, strategy, the difference. In test plan, test focus and project scope are defined. It details with test coverage. It deals with test coverage, scheduling, features to be tested, features not to be tested, estimation and resource management. Test strategy is a guideline to be followed to achieve the test objectives and execution of test types mentioned in the test plan. It deals with test objectives, test environment, test approach, automation tools and strategy, contingency plan, and risk analysis. So some of these things are already from test plan. So test management tool. So that's the end of the class. Now, this is my next phase, test management tool. And I'm going to take this in less than 15 minutes. Let me say 15, 20 minutes. I'll be done with the tool. Any question, I'm going to go through them. I'm going to keep more time to answer questions, but I'm sure my colleagues have been doing fantastic well. So, test management tool. Before I do that, I'll just quickly recap on anything that you just recap on from here. So, test management, I talked about the risk and testing, which we have been talking about severally, the risk and also the testing, entry and exit criteria, entry, how to start, exit, complete, stop, test estimation. So we looked at the metric-based approach, which in the form of a kind of data, looking about the test condition, the test cases. So those are the test estimation. And we are talking about what is test plan, the importances of test plan, how to write a test plan. I explained each of the features to be considered. Then I said the test strategy. What is test strategy? Is a plan for defining the approach of the software testing lifecycle. It guides QA team on test coverage and test planning scope. Then I also explained everything. And the last bit was the difference. You could get more examples too online, difference between test plan and test strategy. So now I'm going to talk about the tool. So for the test management tools, we have several defect management tools. We have Trello, we have Jira. Trello and Jira similar. We have Bookzilla, we have TFS, that's Team Foundation Server. We have MTM, Microsoft Test Manager. We have different tools, and we have Azure DevOps is also. But if you know one tool, believe you me, you can actually work around all those tools that you have mentioned. Once you understand one tool, you can work around every other thing. What do you as a tester want to do in a tool? You want to record the bugs? You want to do that? You as a tester want to record the tools, you want to record the defect that you have found, and also want to put your test cases over there. Because most of the time you can write your test cases and someone else could execute on your behalf. That's why I said you could have a lot of people. Someone can help you to execute some, and it could be you yourself. So similarly, the same way we are going to do today, and I'm just going to give an example of it. So I'll just go straight to this place. I'm sure you all can see my screen. So, sugar. So I'm going to use gift rate as an example. So this website is majorly about gift. You have some things you don't, just keeping the environment and recycling of gifts. You can share it online. People can come there and pick it. Any item, household item, talk about wish lists for either community, anything, just giving. It could be free, it could be paid, anyhow. This is what the website encourages. Just reusable gifts. That's so if you have got Christmas gift that it wasn't finished and you want to actually help someone out there, if you have a chair that, oh, instead of me to throw it away, you can actually post it on this. So now that's like a brief overview of what this website does. So you understand who are the people that are going to use this website. If you look at our analysis, first, everyone, including you and I, we are going to use this. So it's for everybody to use. As long as you want to share a gift, you want to actually help people, you want to reduce waste. So it's for everyone. That's the analysis. Okay, what do we want to now do? The first feature we want to look at here is signing in. So, if you look at it, I could sign in two ways. It's either I get started. So when it says get started, it goes straight on to sign in. Or if I navigate back, I could do this straight on because I've got a sign in button here. So it gives me sign on, and I can sign in and put in my stuff. So I've got these. I use mine. I didn't share the details, but it's live. So that's me now. I've gone into the website. So that's what I want to achieve now. I want to be able to log in. So I'm going to log out back. If I go back again, if I want to create an account, that's I want to register, I want to create an account. When I click here, it goes to a default register, which I'm able to register now in terms of putting my email name and the likes. So these are different functionalities, different features on this. If I want to search for something, when I go there, I can search for an item from there in terms of location, in terms of where the item is, I can pick one. So that's the essence of this website. That's another feature. Talk about the community, about us, home. All these are different features that we have here. Now, I'm just going to go straight to our test case. So our test case that we have written before. So now this is our test case. This is executed, but This is a manual. I've done it without using any tool. I can also execute manually using a tool. So now, the tool I'm going to use today is the Azure DevOps. So I'll just go in there. I've already logged in. So this is my tool. I'll go back. So the only thing you just need to do is you can get a free tool. Just go to, let me do this. You could just go Google and do Azure DevOps. Go down. So you can have this here. It tells me sign into Azure DevOps. Because I'm signed in, because I've got an account, it's going to sync in for me. So I've got two accounts. So if I want to use my account, I can use my account. I can use any account that I have available. So you also can do the same thing as you're doing. Just go there, just get it now. And once you get this, you just get to a page. Just want to give you, you get to a page like this, and it tells you create an account. So you can just create a project name. What's the project name? You can just put testing. And once you put testing, you want to make it private or public. So if it's private, fine. If you want to make it public, but we make it private. And once you say private, it tells you create an account. And once you create, that's a testing account. So that's the way you start executing and creating that on your own work stream. So now I'll go to testing. You can add all your user story, but most of the time, if you've got this defect management tool, you would have had a team. Your team would, the project manager or the business analyst or the scrum master would have created one. So the only thing for you is just to add your bit of it. So now I've got a project created already. So on the project, I'll go to the board. So I'll just give you an overview of it. This is the overview, just to tell you what the project is about. This project is meant to examine the Giftread website, to examine wish list, community, and post item. That is what this project is going to do. That is what is expected of this project. We've got a dashboard. Same thing about the dashboard. These are the things on the dashboard. This is the burn down chart for everyone. It depends on what you configure, what the team configures about this. Then the next thing, we've got this widget, just a description of what we have there. If you look, these are the way to do the community, the wish list, just an explanation, a well done one. So now we go to the board. The board, we've got the work items. We've got the board. So this is the work item. Work item in terms of these are the things that we're going to do. Who is he assigned to? At what level? At what stage? Then this is the board. We have a board. Board in terms of showing this is it. If you have a new one, is he approved? Is committed? And once he's new, you move this. You just move it to the approved. Okay, fine, is approved. Then from there, you can move it over, committed. If it's done, the same thing, you are going to do it. We are going to execute as now. Now we have the backlog. So in the backlog, there are things meant to be in the backlog in terms of what is going to go in the sprint. So we've got different sprints here. string burn down and who is working on this and that. So you can query it. The repo is majorly, now we said test environment, we've talked about this. So when the developers or yourself, you are doing your automation, you do your commit, you push, you've got different branches, majorly a code file. So this is for the code. Then the pipeline. What is the pipeline? You see, we've been talking about environment. So there are different environments that would have been set up. So you can create the environment here. So that would have been done by maybe the infrastructure team, or maybe like if the developers can do it, but mainly infrastructure team. So you've got test environment, you've got the developers environment, you've got the test environment, you've got the UAT, any environment you want to. Then same thing, release process. How is it going to be released at what stage? These are the different libraries, the artifacts, everything that is going to work with, and also the tags group. And also we've got the deployment group too. Now, who are you? The only thing you are interested here is on the board and also the test plan. So we are going to do that now. So on the board now, not to forget, I'm just going to filter to get what I have on my board. So I'm sure. So now I'm just going to make it, I'm sure you all can see it properly now. So at this stage, the first thing I'm going to do is look at our test cases. This is our test steps. Is our test case that we are actually building here. So I say go to Giftreach website, get started, username, password, and this, sign in. This whole thing here, I just want to copy it and paste it somewhere. So I've already done mine. The same thing I've done here is what you have here. You get, this is a picture because I cut it from here. So for me to be able to copy this now, I'm just going to copy everything that is here. That's the only thing I need, everything that is here. I said go to Giftreach website. Now, if I go here, where is Giftreach website? And not to forget, this is the test condition. This is the first thing I want to build. So I'll copy it, I'll go back here. So now it says work item. If you look at the work item, it says test case. That's what I want to build, a test case. I'll click on the test case. So what's my this? That's my details. Okay. Now let me take each of the test steps. So I copy here and I'll put it in the step. I'll go back again, just enter. It's just click and enter. Control copy, and I will give everything just like that, just for me to do it. But I'm not saving this. Back to work item. So once I do it and I save it, I've already done that before. I'm going to search assigned to me and this. So now if you remember, what's the title? S, so is in assigned to me. So I said sign in with valid details. This is it. So this is the same thing. If you look at what I've done here, so that's sign in with valid details. So that's the way you add your test cases. Now I go back to test cases added, go to new work item. When you go to new work item, you've got your test case. So now these are assigning. So we move in here and you can add anything here. Once you add anything, you can save it. It saves. If you close it and open it, you find it back again. So that's the test case there. Now I want to no. So now cancel. Please go out. So now I want to execute that. So now go to the board back, work item. If I want to add the bug, click on this. If there was any failure, title of the bug, login, unable to log in. That's the title of my bug. Now step to reproduce. Navigate to www. Giving them the endpoint, retrieve.com. I'll go back again. Enter username as test@test.com. Password as password password. Then click sign in button. So that's just the info. Maybe if I have any system, I always say info, test environment. I'll just put something. So just to give them an overview, if there's any acceptance criteria that you want to. So click here before you finish here. I say click sign on. I do expected. I always do this. Expected results. User should then the actual error message displayed. Then I can copy the error message and put it there, and that's it. And I save it. That's a bug, so it's already saved. So the same way you go back to save it. So the thing you're interested here, a bug, a test case, then sometimes you'll be asked to add your tags in terms of what are you doing. So you can add a tags. So when you add your tags, it's open the tags bar. The same thing you are going to do for the tags bar. So now when you are executing back, So I'm just going to look for my task. Say, for instance, I want to execute this. So if I'm executing this now, and I found out that it's not working as expected, let me go on this login tags, just search, sign in. I don't know, don't have this. So for this now, once all these are added, the only thing is that you just want to execute on. So if you add that, you will just execute each, let's say each of these activation codes, you can actually run and execute them. Just, I'll go back here. So at this stage, you just have so you have that. It's just an example. You can add this. So I'll just give you how to run it. So go here. So at this place, it will ask you, when you go on the board, on each on the task you want to actually execute, it will ask you, you can add a test. Just add any test. If you add it, it will show there. Now on each of these tasks, it will ask you, do you want to run it? Yes, I want to run my test. You can click, it will run. If you look at this pop-up, it's just running. So I can just say, at this pop-up, I've got create an issue. Maybe, for instance, I'm executing the gift rate and it's not working as expected. The first thing is I can get a screenshot of where it's not working. That's the essence of this capture your screenshots. When you want to add an attachment, you can add an attachment of the screenshots there. There are some cases, if this is properly set up, you can record, because you're licensed for all this, you can record the screen with the audio. So as you're doing this, if you click on record, it will start recording it. You can add a comment. So if I want to add any comments, now save it. So that's the way it is. Okay, it now comes to this mark here. Do I want to pass it? Do I want to fail it? Anything I want to do. Am I blocked? If yes, I click on this. If I'm blocked, once I save it, it comes there. If I've passed, if I've failed, it comes here. So anything I've done, then once I finish, save and close. So you can see it says this is failed. But if I go to this one now, this is a test case, just an example, and I click here. If I want to run, yes, I can also mark it straight on if I've run it as pass. So this is pass. What I will just, once you can execute it, you go back to your test plan. On your test plan, the only thing you want to go here is look at the progress report. What has been executed, what has been done. So not to forget, on this board, If I make sure and I put it here at done, if I go to my test plan and I go to my progress report, it will tell me I've finished all and I've accomplished all that I want to do for the day or for this sprint or for anyone. So that's if you can also run from here, you can also run your test script from here. So in terms of progress report, you can run it completed. You can see it's telling me investigation needed. So all these are, so for your test plan is here. You can run your test plan here, give it anyone you want to do, then run it on your web application. Is linked there. So it can run, you can run it from there, save and close. So once you run it, it shows everything is green from my hand. So when I go to my report, it's going to be green. So that's the way it works. So the things I've actually achieved here, when I go to my slide, and I'm going to this Azure DevOps. So these are the things I'm going to achieve. Well, how is Azure DevOps used for manual testing? How to create a project? I've done that. How to add test cases? Yeah. How to move the tickets on board? I've done that. How to run it? I've done it. How to add the bug? I've also done that. Then test plan, the test reports, and the view progress reports. All these have been done. These are my test scripts. These are these. All these, I just put them in case my system goes down. That's essence of the pictures. So now I'll just iterate from what I've done. Go to your board, add your test cases, add your work item, your bug or a test plan. Go to your board. On the board, anyone you want to execute to do, it says that's what you're doing now. It moves there, or you can take it back. You can add a task to it. It will come up. So when you add a task and you've executed it, go to, if you add a task, then we go to test plan. You can execute your test plan, run on web, any one of them. If you don't want to run both together, you can remove them, save and continue. You can view the progress report. So that is the end of this, and this is it. But I like to say the more you play with a tool, the more understanding you get with it. Major thing that I've done here, add test cases, add the bug, add the tags, run it. That's what you do as a tester. Test cases, and you execute it. More, we'll have that there. So I'll go to the question and answer time. The first thing to do as a new user. Yes, you said the first thing to do as a new user is to register, correct? Yes, that's what you're meant to do. But I've already registered, I have. Can we view the recording after the presentation? Yes, you can view the recording. You can view the recording actually. Once it's set up, it's because I don't have license to do it, because I'm already doing it from my own personal device. Yeah, we get all this document before preparing the test environment, that is test management, metric plan, test plan, etc. Do we have to download it? What if the company does not have these documents? Now, for everything you're asking, you said preparing the test environment is a different case on its own. Test environments are done. Test environments are meant to be infrastructure configuration done by the developers and the infrastructure team. Then you said for metric plan. No, metric plan is majorly inside tests, how to do your test coverage, your test reports. That is the essence of this metric plan. So for test plan, it has to be developed before you start the project. Test cases, test scripts. Test script has to be developed before you start executing it. So you don't download them. It's always like a spreadsheet. And for instance, for the test script, if you write your test cases on if you're using a tool like this DevOps, you don't need to do it on the spreadsheet. It's going to be here. So it's going to be corrected there. Always note that anything you do on a tool, there is always an history. It doesn't clean. There's always an history. So I can look at the history of it. Is there a template for testing? There's a process for it. If you mean templates for testing, there are templates for test plan, test strategy, how to design a test case. There are templates for it. So when you mean template for testing, if this is what I'm thinking that you mean the steps to take, I mean recording this session. Oh, I believe so. I believe the session would have been recorded. Please, ma'am, are there similarities in epic and use cases? Or the epic are big stories that needs to be broken down into features and use cases. It depends on if it's an agile, if it's a waterfall environment. This is mainly the job of the business analyst. So that's why you have a big story. Everything that we need to know is the epic. Yeah. Yes, it's been recorded. So yes, they said it's been recorded. There similarities in epic and use cases, or are they the same? So in use cases, epic are actually like everything about the project we are working on. So it's now going to be broken in smaller cases. So use cases too. There are similarities in it too. So, but I think they too need to be broken in terms of bits and pieces. So that's where the functionality, what do you want to do, and this. So it depends on it. But I think a better idea, an answer will be from the business analyst. So from both, let me go down again to see where will we get this document before preparing the test environment. No, I think I've answered them. Once you send your email, don't send it on the chat. Just send it to the admin. He will get you the soft copy. Just send your email to the admin. He's going to get you soft copies. So Ibrahim, situations where companies don't have this document, you will need to get them to get a template and build these documents up. Yeah, I think yes. It's been answered already. I can see, I think majorly they've actually answered everything. So, well, I'll say in the absence of any other question before we finish the class, any question in terms of tools, in terms of everything we have done, not to forget anything. Okay, in the absence of, okay, let me see, there's a message in here. It captures, okay, yeah. So she's already saying it. So if you can read that, the answer for the use case on the epic. So in absence of no question, I'll say this is the end of the manual testing class for this time.